I don't know if you're familiar with Andy Crouch, but Andy Crouch, who's a writer of a book called Culture Maker, and more recently a book about power, which I'm forgetting the title of. But one of the things Andy is fond of saying is that the remedy for bad culture is better culture. That when there is something that doesn't work, there's a necessary responsibility by those who can to build something that does. That you can't fix bad culture, you create better culture. And I think one of the things I think that has marked your history is you seem to, with your music, create spaces for folks who want to engage with God as present in more and various spaces, as opposed to God who's over here in this corner and we have to huddle around him, but a God who is truly present everywhere, which then gives us the onus and responsibility to see him in our own lives and present to us. So creating that better culture, which I think is part of what you've done for 20 years and part of why your tribe of folks has stuck with you for 20 years, only part of it. And so in that thought, part of the grain against that is this. We have a common friend, Derek, who is fond of saying that the word Christian, applied to anything other than a person, is a marketing term. That it's a way to create a cultural or marketing space over here so that we can point it again that little corner. I think that's a provocative thought. I think it's actually relatively accurate. For you guys, though, as the long-standing members of what we've recognized as the Christian marketplace, can you talk about the tension insofar as you're making music, that you want to help people, that you're making it because you want to help folks to see God, see life present in more and various places, and yet you're part of, or at least from the outside, part of this kind of maybe cornered market. Can you talk a little bit about that tension, about like your journey in that space?
Really quickly, I think part of our job, part of our joy, even, is to be humans that are students of aesthetics. We're meant to go out into the world and see the beautiful things and reflect them. I think that's a part of our charge as creation and creation carers. So see the beauty and report it. I think that's a really important charge. And there was one other thing that I had to say that was really, it was going to bring. It was actually going to bring the house.
Look at the world and describe it.
It was amazing. You remember I was saying it earlier? I'll see if I remember.
Strong.
Just, I know it's going to come back.
No, it is. Man, people, I want to sit in a chair with a remote and just have it come at me, honestly. I don't want to have to discern, because discernment means we have to continue to push our story into the culture, into the stuff that's coming at us, into the movie, into the music, into that relationship, into the news, for God's sakes, into that war, into that politic. It's exhausting, but we cannot stop doing that. That's a charge. I think that's a gospel charge, and we got to continue to discern. And I fear that when we just say stuff's Christian, it biases us in this Western, we got it sorted out, our teenage nation, like, just listen to us, the super Christian power people, and we can just assume, and I think that's why we deal with leaders tragically fallen off of pedestals, and why Europe and the rest of the universe that's been around a little bit longer than us tends to go, oh yeah, another guy in charge did something awful. Wow. So we can't stop discerning. We cannot stop discerning. We got to continue to bring ourselves to that process. That's what I think.
A good word.
Naming something Christian makes us turn off.
It truncates the discernment process.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, I think as creators and as people that operate in this space, and I think this transfers out of just what we do, but I think for us it became clear early on that you have a choice to make. You can either tell the story that you think the space that you are in wants or needs or even maybe ought to hear, or you can decide to tell your story and let the chips fall where they are, where
Yeah.
they land. And to kind of say, so you can either try to control sort of the space by, or manipulate it by trying to sort of figure out what you think are the levers, and that certainly applies, you know, to Christian. You can kind of sort of look at the Christian space and kind of go, oh, these are the sorts of things that work here. This maybe even is the thing that I think they need to hear or that ought to be said. And even those, you know, maybe they can come from a pure place, but they're a form of control, as opposed to you can sort of look deeper into your own story and sort of say, okay, what is happening with me in all its sort of unfinishedness and kind of brokenness and kind of fractures, and sort of tell that, and let that be your sort of exercise of faith. It's sort of saying if God is showing up anywhere, you know, then he has to sort of be in this. And that's sort of, I think, how we've written songs over the years. We've
Yeah.
sort of leaned in that direction, and so that's sort of how we've navigated through that space.